आ गई अब आवाज? एक बार थम्स अप दीजिएगा, आवाज आ रही हो तो। So in the last class we have seen the phases of teaching. So we are continuing with the unit base. Unit based teaching which has been given by the Morrison. Therefore Morrison is called as the propounder of unit method. So unit is actually concentrated on the behavior of the learner, which we have seen earlier also, acquisition of the subject matter, and unit was the procedure to have the adaptation based on the stimulus response psychology. That is the basis of the behaviorism. So when we will see the basis of the behaviorism, we will see it. So let us see the steps of a teaching unit. When we talk about the pre-active phase, it is also called the introductory phase. In this phase, we always link the new content or the new knowledge with the previous knowledge of the child. So the first thing, the foremost thing in the pre-active phase or the introductory phase we call it, we connect the previous knowledge, the knowledge constructed within the child already with the child, to the content we are giving, to the new knowledge we are providing, either through the activity or through the lecture. Whatever be the procedure of method of teaching, the previous knowledge is being associated with the concurrent knowledge. Also, the appreciative mass of the students, What does it indicates? It indicates that we should have a perception of the students towards the knowledge, because if they do not they do not appreciate the knowledge, they do not appreciate the content, they will not be the ready to learn it. So actually appreciative mass leads us to the readiness of the learner, particularly for the teaching units which we are going to conduct within the class. So it will help in the motivation of the child. For readiness, what we see? We will see the first we will have the appreciative mass, then we will have the motivation of the learners, then we will provide the objectives so that they can correlate that the content is useful for them and in which manner that is useful, in which manner the content is useful for them. So we will see that in the pre-active phase, we will see the linking of the previous knowledge and the current knowledge. We will see the appreciation of the learners for the content. We will see the motivation of the content. We will see the readiness of the content. We will see that the learner become aware of all the objectives which are the focus within the teaching learning session. So actually pre-active phase, as I have said, is working for readiness of the learner. And when the child or the learners become ready to learn, we start interactive phase. That is the second phase of the learning. So with the help of units, U is missing, units, appropriate learning experiences is provided to perform certain activities and through which we facilitate students' learning. So we will facilitate the various kind of activities for the facilitation of the student learning. प्रीति जी स्वागत है आपका. So interactive phase, what we are seeing? Interactive phase, we have seen that certain activities are facilitated to facilitate the teaching learning process. That is, the interaction of the child is being expected at this phase. Then comes the post-active phase. After the child has completed the teaching learning process or the activities which we have provided, what we will do? Now we will evaluate the learning objectives, whether they have achieved it or not. So we actually evaluate the students' performance. In the post-active phase, we often call it summative assessment, essay. Assessment in assessment and evaluation module, we will see it in completely. Summative assessment. Then comes elements of a teaching unit. So first one is the overview or the introduction. So overview is always on the basis of level of the student, that is their previous knowledge. When we talk about the level of the student, what is it? The previous knowledge, the age of the student, the intelligence basis of the student, various kind of interest, the socio-cultural context, the individualized need of the child, the nature of the subject matter, the attitude or aptitude of the child. So they are the basis of deciding the formulation of objectives in accordance with the individual differences of the child. Then comes the second point, that is inventory or background. Now what we start exploring, we will start the basis of the previous knowledge, and on the basis of that we will see the level of aspiration of the child. We will see the level of motivation state of the child. We may give pretest here so that we can understand it clear. We have the clarity or we understand it clearly. Or we may ask the informal questions on the basis of that. So either of the cases, we will explore the various kind of perspectives and the context within the child individual differences, so that we can take on the learning of the child. Then comes the presentation. So now we will, because first of all, the student, if anybody is for the school education, this content is not for the school education, because we are focusing on the college education. College education, we are still focusing on the lecturing by the teacher, while in the school education we have shifted towards the facilitation of the teacher and learning by doing. In the college level education, we are still focusing on the collaboration of these two. The teacher still teaches, the teacher still lectures the content to the child explores, and for him teacher is also a very good source to collect the information, to collect the knowledge. Still they have to verify the knowledge. They do not wholesomely rely on the knowledge provided by the teacher, but still the mode is also continuing. So presentation, every element related to the content is being represented by the child. So they will provide new learning situations, experiences to the learners. They will provide it in a logical sequence for retainable learning, lecture, discussion, demonstration, or any other teaching method or strategy, with the teaching aids, proper questioning answer technique, to encourage the participation of learner in the teaching learning process. It will ensure the participation of the learner in the teaching learning process. The next is motivation. Like we have seen that if the learner is not motivated, so if we are facilitating it, it will not be very helpful. So the learner should be motivated enough to be ready for the learning. We can use various techniques, audiovisual aids, etc., just to motivate the learner, and it is one of the very important factor for facilitating the readiness of the learning or the learning itself. Then comes the summarization. So induction deduction approach, whole to part teaching, is utilized for the comprehension of the unit. So the elements of teaching units are summarized at the end of presentation. All elements will be summarized. It will help in recapitulation as well as the subsumption, as well as chunking of the whole class. It also gives us a clear-cut formation of a schema within the child. Then comes the drilling and review. That is the practice, drilling or practice. So what we see, the traditional teaching always involves the drilling. So the students will learn better. We say that by the Thorndike's principle, and also they retain longer. So drill or practice is being conducted, then we will review where the child is conducting the mistakes. We can arrange the micro teaching sessions on particular mistakes or the particular learning gaps which the child is having, and on the basis of that we will do it again and again until and up to the child has learned correctly, everything they have learned correctly. So drill, review, then again drill, then again review. It is done maybe orally, maybe through the other methods. Then comes the organization. So we will provide assignments. Through the assignments, the students can organize their learning experiences according to their own ability. Through the assignments, they can organize their learning experiences according to their own ability. Organization is very important because it gives the totality to the learning domain of the child. It gives a gestalt, we call it gestalt formation of the content. So gestalt formation of the content can be seen through the organization of the child. We can give various assignments, various projects. We can give various things for this thing. Then comes the evaluation. So we will conduct evaluation through oral questions or through the various kind of tests, so that we can understand the learning outcomes, whether they have been achieved by the child or not, and how much learning outcomes have been achieved. We can see how much learning outcomes have been achieved by the child. Then comes the basic principles of unit method. That is very important. They have been asked again and again. So what we see, principle of interest and purpose. So if we want to achieve the objectives of the learning, what we have, the learner should be interested in the teaching learning process. If he is not interested, how are we going to achieve? So readiness always involves the interest within the child. For that we have to give the goal and purpose and objective to the child. If the learning is meaningful for them, then they will actually learn it, and then this will brings the desired changes, the expected behavioral changes within the child. Just give me a second. Then comes the principle of unit. So unit gives the wholeness concept to the content. What are the various topics which can be chunked together? So I'm saying it again and again, that is the chunking. One more term I use again and again, that is subsumption. And gestalt. They all leads to the wholeness of the content, the consolidation of the things we have learned. Because if the things are being consolidated, then we can have larger content and we can analyze anything at a time. So it helps in this particular kind of thing. Then comes the child supremacy. Child is the boss. We call it the child is the boss. So child is the boss means we should care about the individual differences of the child. We should give importance to the needs of the child, the instincts of the child. So teaching should not be directed by the needs of the teacher. Teacher is not completing the subject. Child is learning the content, learning the subject. So the focus of the teacher should move away from the teacher desire towards the learner desire. What learner wants. Then comes the principle of organization. That means we are focusing on the planning. We should plan each and everything about the teaching process, about the teaching learning process, about the knowledge. Because the planning is always leads us to organization of the content, chunking of the content on the previous knowledge. Next knowledge will be constructed, and it will form a schema in a correct form. It will help the child to have the meaningful conversation, meaningful learning. It will help the child to use the knowledge in the various situations. So the knowledge is not complete if it is not meaningful. It cannot be applied. The child is not understanding it. So to ascertain these things, we should organize the plan, the learning and the teaching in advance in a proper scientific psychological manner. That is the principle of organization. Then comes the principle of dynamism. So in organization, we are seeing the planning, and the dynamism actually sabotages this plan. So we plan everything, but still the individual differences, the randomness of the behavior of the collection of the group of the child, because the child is in itself is very unique. So how they gonna respond to our presented situations, our presented learning opportunities, that is very random. So teaching units should be dynamic, and dynamism is the key to teaching, because it actually allows the wider domain to reach the pupil, and pupil will then acquire each and everything, because we have a dynamic set of students within our class. We cannot set a definite single standard which can be applicable to all the students, because everybody is individually different. So we should be ready, and we should accept that dynamism is the part of the classroom teaching. And when we accept it and plan accordingly, then we will enrich our teaching learning process, and enrichment is the key towards the dynamism. So at a point we are planning it, and at the next step we are seeing that your plan should inculcate flexibility of everything. So we call the flexibility of opportunities, and this will lead to the enrichment of opportunities within the class. Because if you are providing the flexibility of functioning to the learner, that will enrich the classroom, because now the set of students, whether it is 20, 30, 40, whatever is your number of students, now they will actually facilitate various kind of methods, methodologies, strategies, styles. And here comes the enrichment, because not a single method is being implemented, but a mix of methods is playing within the class, and we often call it the festival of learning. That is called the festival of learning. What is festival? Which inculcates every available color, every available mood, and everybody is joyful because they are enjoying it. That is festival. So enrichment, dynamism actually leads us to festival of learning. Everybody is showing his own colors, enjoying his own way of learning, and everybody is joyful within the classroom, the teacher, the learner, everybody. Then comes the principle of recitation, that is the revision part. It is the revision part. So recitation helps in retaining of the new knowledge. Recitation helps in retaining of the new knowledge. So it is encouraged in the UNIF method that you should revise and practice again and again. Then come elements of teaching unit, division of content. Content is subject wise and topic wise divided into smaller units, smaller sections, giving practical shape to teaching process, dividing and correlating various kind of information and making into unit gives us clarity of the content and the subject. Then comes the overview, that is the objectives according to the subject and the child. Previous knowledge, that is the interconnection between various sequencing of the knowledge. Elements of the content, that is logical order of the content, which we have gained through the previous knowledge, and based on that, then the motivation. Every activity which is being performed within the unit should have the interest and child should have motivation for that. Summarization, drill and recapitulation, organization and evaluation. We have seen them. Summarization, that is the summary of all the content which leads us to chunking. Drill and recapitulation, revising the content and the learning experiences with various methods. Organization, to plan and provide an proper organization to the learned content. And the evaluation, after the learning, to see the various achievement level or learning outcomes of the child, that is called evaluation. That content we have seen. So Morrison have gives us five-step instructional pattern for unit method. Instruction process is called method or plan. First one is pre-test. First we will conduct the pre-test. After that we will do the teaching. Then testing the result of instruction. And if there is any discrepancies or learning gaps, anything within the classroom, then we will change the instruction process. And then again we will teach and test. So this is the five-step plan of Morrison, and that gives us unit method. They are also called the steps of the unit method. We have seen the Bloom taxonomy. We can make the Bloom taxonomy print on the basis of this. Then we have to see the phases of teaching. Now we have to see the levels of teaching. The question has been asked again and again from the levels of teaching. So when we see the levels of teaching, what we see, teacher teach students at 3 levels. So Biggie has classified these, and we have seen the levels. Biggie has classified these levels, and the levels, the methods of these levels or the model of these levels have been provided separately by different psychologists or different educators. So when we see educationist Biggie, he says that teaching learning situation, to quote him, we have to understand, teaching learning situations may be classified on a continuum He says that teaching learning process can be classified in a continuum which ranges from thoughtful to thoughtless modes of operation. It ranges from thoughtful to thoughtless mode of operation. So level of teaching starts from the thoughtful level, from the thoughtless level to the thoughtful level. So what is the thoughtless level of operation and what is the thoughtful level of operations? So they are the three levels. And the three levels are, first one is memory level. That is thoughtless teaching. Second one is understanding level. That is thoughtful teaching. And third one is reflective level. That is upper thoughtful level. Sometimes it is also called metacognitive level. It is called cognitive level. मुकेश ओझा जी, स्वागत है आपका. So the first level is memory level, which is thoughtless level. So if we are focusing on thoughtless teaching, what we are seeing? We are seeing the first statement is by the Wordsworth. Memory is direct use of what is learned. So when we are directly using whatever we are learning, that is called the memory. Second, Ross is talking about memory is a new experience determined by the dispositions laid by previous experience. That is relation between the two. And it will bring out everything you do. That is memory. Whereas McDougall says that memory implies imagining of events as experienced in the past and recognizing them from the past experiences. So whenever we are doing something, we will recognize it from the past experiences. That is memory level. So the phases of memory or the cycle of memories, what we see? Learning, first one thing, then retention or storage, then recall. We also call it storage. Storing the content within our brain. Then comes the recognition. So on the basis of this, so what we are doing, we are learning things, learning facts, then retaining it or storing the facts into our minds, then brought the retained information or fact to the conscious mind, and then thinking upon it. On the basis of this is not a very good classification of memory. We will see the classification of memory as given by the various psychologists still. So immediate memory, when we recall, is immediate. Then the permanent memory, मुकेश जी ये बोध स्तर नहीं है, ये स्मृति स्तर है. Then the personal memory, permanent memory, that is the long time memory, we call it. We can recall it for a long time, after a long time. Personal memory, that is from our own experiences. Impersonal memory, that we have retained from books or from other fellow members. Active memory, we have to make efforts to recall. Passive memory, recalling without efforts. Mechanical memory, that is the memory of the body becomes habitual of doing anything. Rote memory, we are cramming facts without understanding. Logical memory, the memory on the basis of intellect. And for recalling, we have to reason out. We call it reasoning. It is reasoning based. So there are various characteristics which has been given of the memory based learning. Rapidity in learning, because we can give very wide content, very much content at a time when we are providing the memory level teaching. Stability of retention, if something is retained, it is stable because it doesn't changes with the time. Rapidity in recall, because if you have memorized very efficiently, then you can recall it very efficiently. Then serviceable, that means that you can use it through the various kind of services. Then forgetting irrelevant things, it helps in discriminating between relevant and irrelevant things, because you will not try to recall those things which are irrelevant. So if we are talking about the memory level of teaching, what we see, Herbert is the exponent of memory level of teaching. So we can say that it is first and thoughtless level of teaching, which we have seen as earlier. It is concerned with the memory or the basic mental ability that exists in all living beings, not only in human beings. It is memory based. Recalling is actually available in every organism, and Darwin says that it is based on the biology of the individual. It is based in the genes. Therefore, intellect level of human beings are similar. We may see variations, but still the human beings have more intellect than the apes. Their near organisms, their near brother organisms, they have very much intellect than the rats, than the monkeys, than the cats. So human genes reflect those levels of intellect within the brain. A level of intellect is found within the cats. So what we see that the biological nature of the intellect. So it is the mental ability. So in this level, emphasis is to lay down on the presentation of the facts, informations, and its cramming. We have to remember everything. Informations and facts, we have to remember everything. We have to cram it. And it is called lowest level of teaching. It is the lowest level of teaching. So what are its characteristics? First one, thinking ability does not play any role at this level. We are just focused on retaining, recalling, recalling, retaining, retaining, recalling, recognizing, retaining, recalling, recognizing. So students cram the facts, informations, formulas, laws, definitions, rules, etc., etc. So teaching is nothing. We just say that teaching is nothing. Why it is nothing? Because it is only delivery of content by the teacher. Delivery of content by the teacher. Rajkumar Kalia ji, स्वागत है आपका. So it is only delivery of content by the teacher. So focus is on learning the subject matter by roting. So focus is on rote learning. We can call it rote learning. In Hindi we call it ratna. So it is all about कि हमें रटना है. लर्निंग इज ऑल कंसर्न अबाउट रटने की कितना आपके अंदर कैपेसिटी है. देन द रोल ऑफ द टीचर इज प्रोमिनेंट एंड दैट ऑफ स्टूडेंट इज सेकेंडरी. So if we are talking about the role of the student, it is secondary. But if we are talking about the role of the teacher, it is prominent. Therefore, it is called teacher-centric approach. It is teacher-centric learning. TCA. So if we want to provide the TCA, the support will be from the books, study material we call it. Study material, if it is well organized, it is pre-planned, then it will be helpful for the teacher because he have to just deliver that content. He has to just deliver that content. So teacher actually presents the content or the study material in a sequential order, which we have seen that it is delivery of content, nothing more and nothing less. It is just the delivery of the content. So critics often say that memory level teaching lacks insight. Psychologically, it is cognitive level teaching, but it is passive cognition. It is cognitive level teaching, but passive cognition. So let us say about the steps. So first one is the focus. So cramming of facts and development of following capacities. The following capacities: training for cramming up, for remembering everything, providing knowledge, facts, retaining the facts, recalling the facts. So training the mental aspects for providing knowledge or recognizing also we call it. Retaining knowledge, recalling knowledge. That is all about memory. So training of mental aspect is for the memory training, we call it. Memory training we conduct here. Then the syntax. Syntax is about the Herbartian steps, that is Herbartian 5-step model. Panchpadiya Pranali, we call it. Preparation, along with then the statement of the aim and presentation. These two are one step. Then association, previous knowledge with the current knowledge. After presenting the content, then generalization, formulation of principles and laws for the future life situations, and then lastly application. So use of knowledge in the new situation. Whatever you have learned will be used in the new situation. Then comes the social system. The social systems have here two elements, the pupil and the teacher. Teacher who is providing the content, pupil who is gathering the content. There will be, within social system there will be two individuals, teacher providing the content, delivering the content, learner gathering that content and memorizing it. Support system, so oral, written, essay type examination is used to assess or evaluate the learning of the child. So it is useful when we saw about the merits. It is useful particularly for the lower classes, not for the higher classes, because they more focus on the rote memory. So what we have seen in the nursery classes, people used to cram up now. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty have a great fall. So what we see? That is it is very useful at the lower level. Bilkul Mukesh Ojha ji. Then the role of the teacher is very important because it is teacher centric approach. He is free to make choices of subject matters. He plans everything and he has to present the content within the class. So memory level teaching is very important at the lower level in the nursery classes. In the first class, second class, up to second class it is very good. Why so? Because the memory processes which we develop at those stages, they form the basis for the future. That is intelligence and thinking. They form the basis for intelligence and thinking. And it is a prerequisite for understanding level teaching. It is prerequisite for the understanding level teaching. Then the demerits. Apart from the various capabilities, it does not contribute to the other capabilities of development of other capabilities within the child. and in some child we have seen that it actually hinders the development of other capabilities like the thinking capabilities, because if a 5-6 year child, 10-12 year child, 15-16 year child, that is the preschooler, the primary schooler, the medium, the secondary schooler child, the adolescent child, the college given child, if they are using the memory level teaching, if they are facing the memory level teaching and they are using the memory level learning, it will hinder, it will create the barriers for the development of thinking of that level, that is the concrete level thinking, abstract level thinking, that is the development of the induction processes, that is the development of the convergent and divergent thinking, because they will rely on the memory level and they will not use their faculties which has been enhanced and which has been developed towards the next levels, higher order levels. Then as students are learning by the rote, the knowledge gained may not be helpful in the real life situation, because knowledge is being stored within the brain. Knowledge is being stored in the brain, but how it going to be used, capabilities are not being developed. So having factual knowledge, or we call it academic knowledge, does not converts into the social cultural development of the child, that is socialization of the child. This is one of the foremost reason that at the primary level, secondary level and higher learning levels we are moving away from the memory level of teaching. Then the problem is about the strict discipline and cramming. It actually is a barrier towards the development of the democratic values within the child, because it is just against the democracy, the principles of democracy. You are dictating, as a teacher you are dictating the cramming up of knowledge, you are teacher is dictating the cramming up of knowledge, teacher is dictating the discipline, the self discipline, the self learning process, that is not being developed within the child. Intelligence is not very much important in this type of teaching. So we say that the motivation, self motivation may be missing, and motivation always relies on the extrinsic motivators like the rewards and punishments. They will always be dependent upon the extrinsic motivation. So intrinsically the child never feel motivated to learn. They doesn't feel any time motivated to learn it. So in the next class we will see the understanding level of teaching as well as the reflective level of teaching, and what are the merits and demerits and what are the steps based on this. So you should also remember, because we are focusing on the memory level teaching, I am trying to explain everything, but still we are in the colleges, in the online classes, we are giving the memory based teaching. I am delivering the content to you. So in the next class we will take up the Morrison 5-step plan for the understanding level of teaching and the Hunt's 5-step plan for the reflective level of teaching. So any question? शशांक जी, जय हिंद आपको भी. Any question you want to ask? Shivani is asking what is subsumption. So subsumption is a process in which we sum up the various concepts to form a integrated, consolidated concept or knowledge. That is called subsumption. So there may be corrective subsumption, because if you have learned something wrong and new information comes to you, you correct it. That is corrective subsumption. Or the sequential subsumption, like you have the knowledge that Manmohan Singh is the Prime Minister in 2013. After the election, the Narendra Modi becomes the Prime Minister. Then what you will do? You will not delete or correct the information, you will update the information. That is updation. That is also subsumption. Now what you will see? You will say that up to 2014, Manmohan Singh was Prime Minister. After 2014, Narendra Modi is Prime Minister. So these kind of activities are called subsumption, where you are updating, correcting, changing, various kind of things you will do with your information or knowledge. Any other question? For drilling method, you have to prepare the practice sessions and give it to the learners. They will practice it. That is the drilling method. The practice sessions are called the drills. Mukesh Jaji, this is not related to this content, but variables are the various elements which keep on changing within the within any context, for any situation, for any particular thing. If the elements are changing, those changing elements are called variables. So keep your questions related to the content. That will be beneficial for you, because it will help in the chunking, it will help in subsumption, it will help in making the proper schemas. So it is just like that you are making a building. Suddenly what you do? Suddenly you think that, oh, I should also make the Taj Mahal. So after laying down 2 bricks, what you are doing? You are laying 2 bricks of the Taj Mahal. Then you say that no, we should build on the Qutub Minar, and now you are laying down the design of the Qutub Minar. So what will happen? The first layer will be of your design of building, then the design of the Taj Mahal, then the design of the Qutub Minar. It looks very ugly. That happens to our concepts whenever we are not concentrating on one thing. We are asking anything randomly. That is not the things we should expect from the teachers. So that's all for the day. I am taking leave. I expect that everybody will facilitate the constructivism, so that the learning can becomes enjoyable, joyful. On that note, I am taking leave. We will meet again. Namaskar.